The Royal Rumble is the second biggest event of 2021, and it's going to be even bigger. During our Wrestling Insider pay-per-view watch-along is the former Raw main eventer himself. John Cena Sr. will be in studio live during the big event. We'll watch the Royal Rumble, take some questions, sign some autographs, and make this year's Royal Rumble as interactive as it can be without you being there in person. Get ready for John Cena Sr. live during the Royal Rumble, January 31st. Boston Wrestling Sports and the MWF explodes into a new year of unknown with professional wrestling content galore, and we need you to join our family. Every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. after we review the previous night's Monday Night Raw, it's Wrestling Insiders at your house with the unpredictable WWE Hall of Famer, Mr. USA, Tony Atlas. Wednesday nights after WWE, NXT, and AEW at 10 p.m., you never know who's going to show up on Wrestling Insiders Special Edition. Every Thursday night at 10 p.m. after our NXT and Dynamite review, it's Marty Jannetty's No Holds Barred Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll journey through the 80s and 90s on Wrestling Insiders Party with Marty. Friday nights after the lights go down at the Thunderdome on SmackDown, it's John Cena Sr.'s Wrestling Insiders Fabulous Fridays. Plus, look for classic clips, bonus live episodes, pay-per-view watch-alongs, and more. If you want early, ad-free access to all of our Wrestling Insider talk shows, our acclaimed studio shoot interview DVD library, and to help keep wrestling legends working during the worst of times, for less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks, join our growing family at patreon.com/Boston Wrestling. Expect the unexpected in 2021.
This is Mick Foley.
This is Harley Race.
This is Shelton Benjamin.
This is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
This is the Monster Abyss.
And this is Daniel Bryan.
This is JBL, and you're watching the MWF.
Be there live.
Ladies and gentlemen, and I do use that term loosely, wrestling fans around the corner, around the world, welcome to another installment of Wrestling Insiders Current Events, as we discuss the results, news, and views from the Friday, January 29th, 2021 edition of WWE SmackDown under the Thunderdome at Tropicana Field in Tampa, Florida, the final SmackDown before the Royal Rumble. It's an Arctic, barely out of the teens night here in the greater Boston area, here at MWF Studios, downtown Melrose, Massachusetts, in the zip code of champions 02176. It's the perfect night to kick back, relax, and talk about the king of sports, professional wrestling. Before we run down SmackDown, let's get a little time for a few more fans to join us. Let's run down the schedule for the week. If you haven't noticed, every day at 10 a.m. on both our YouTube and Twitters, we release a short WWF, WWE history video with results from a live event on that day, generally from the 80s and 90s, as that's the era we love to talk about so much on our talk shows. Every Saturday, Sunday, and Monday at 2 p.m., we release a Wrestling Insiders flashback going back in time to one of our great studio shoot interview DVDs or Wrestling Insider talk shows. I'll give you a little bit of a teaser to hopefully entice you to join the growing family over at Patreon and help keep wrestling legends working at patreon.com/Boston Wrestling. Saturday nights, let me tell you, they're turning into a double feature for at least the winter, as after our weekly SmackDown review programs at 10 p.m., we're going to bring you Wrestling Insiders Week in Review. We realize that life being as busy as it is, it's tough to dedicate 4 nights a week to keep up with our high-quality in-studio Wrestling Insider studio shoot interviews at 10 p.m., so we're going to give you a little late night, a one-stop shopping with every episode that week in one longer video. It's perfect to watch during the premiere if coronavirus has your area, your part of the country kind of shut down at night and you don't have much to do, you're hanging around the house on a Saturday, or for you to listen to while you're at work, while you can travel. Anytime you want to hear some great talk, a good old professional wrestling. Tonight at 10 p.m., you can catch this past week's episodes featuring Tony Atlas shooting on the deaths of Brody Lee and the legendary Danny Hodge, along with what wrestler Tony thinks is tougher than Haku. Nasty Boys Brian Knobb shoots on leaving the NWA for the WWF, joining the company around the same time as The Undertaker, Royal Rumble 1991, and more. This week's Party with Marty Jannetty is a movie-length episode where he tries to talk about WWF 1989 with J.J. Dillon jumping ship, a Haku bar fight, an enhancement talents issue with the Barbarian, but in typical Marty style, he dives into being injured by a coked-up WCW superstar, Jane Fonda getting physical with WCW personnel, plus a confrontation he had in Austria with a promoter that led to the police helping Marty flee the country. You never know what to expect with Marty Jannetty, folks. And we also have last night's Fabulous Friday with John Cena Sr. as he shoots on tomorrow night's Royal Rumble and the return of Goldberg. And let's talk about tomorrow night itself. It's going to be a big one for us, folks. Along with our daily history and flashback videos, we're going to have a bonus pay-per-view weekend episode of Wrestling Insiders Special Edition, Part 2 of our acclaimed studio shoot interview with TJP, TJ Perkins. He's a young veteran with global experience. I have to say, I loved the interviews with TJ. I really want to have him back in the studio much sooner than later. Then at 7 p.m. tomorrow night, batten down the hatches. It's our Royal Rumble pay-per-view watch-along party live, as we'll be joined by the one and only John Cena Sr., sharing his thoughts on WWE's second biggest event of the calendar year. We're going to have a lot of fun and hope that you can join us live. For our Wrestling Insiders talk shows this week, again, remember, Tuesday night at 10 p.m., it's WWE Hall of Famer, Mr. USA Tony Atlas. On Special Edition, Wednesday night at 10 p.m., rotating guests, it's the return of Nasty Boys Jerry Saggs. Fans love Saggs' last interview. This time, Saggs is back talking more about WWF in 1991. Thursday night at 10 p.m., it's Marty Jannetty's No Holds Barred, Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll look back at the 80s and 90s. And then, again, we round out the week with John Cena Sr.'s Fabulous Fridays after SmackDown every week at 10 p.m. This week, when you toss in TJP, it's going to be a big 5-episode week for you when it comes to the talk shows. And you want to talk about live? Well, this coming Friday night, February the 5th, he's back. The women's shoe and chicken wing loving Tony Atlas will be back in studio live for some wrestling fan interaction, fun, autographs, artwork, and more during SmackDown. Always great to have Tony with us. And in just a few weeks, on Friday night, February the 19th, the rocker himself, Marty Jannetty, will have a special live program and cyber autograph signing during SmackDown. Mark your calendars now as we heat up a cold winter. If we can get more fan support with the Super Chats during the live premieres on eBay, as well as those signing up on our acclaimed Patreon service, there are more superstars, more new guests that are very interested in joining us in studio in the month of March. It's up to you. I will work this crippled ass off as hard as I can to give you guys the content you want to see if you're willing to help us cover the expenses. To me, there is no better place to be and no better value than our Patreon. If you watch any of our programs each week, we consider you a friend. But if you are a member of the Patreon, you're part of the family, brother, sister. You're almost blood. If you enjoy the early ad-free access to our Wrestling Insiders in-studio shoot interview talk shows, if you enjoy the world-renowned studio shoot interview DVD library that's been seen by millions online and millions more on the Howard Stern Show, if you love the exclusive content and you care about helping keep wrestling legends working during the worst of times, head on over to patreon.com/Boston Wrestling. It's the place to be. All for less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Try it for a month. I bet you'll love it. Even if you hate it, you can go to bed knowing that you're helping keep wrestling legends work during the worst of times. It has now been over 10 months since the virus started to shut down live wrestling events, autograph signings, fan fests. If you're not an individual with a WWE or AEW contract, it's a scary time out there. You know, I know the government has been spoiling us with those $600 stimulus checks, but believe it or not, to some, that's not enough to eat and pay your rent off of for a year. I don't know. I don't know how far $600 goes where you are, but it's better than nothing, I get, right? But anyway, joining the Patreon helps the cause. If everyone contributes a little, we can do a lot. I believe that. I know. All of us as a unit can team up to help these wrestling greats. Speaking of the stimulus, brother and sisters, again, if you're looking to upgrade your wrestling man cave, women cave, check out the link to the eBay store in the description box below. We've got outstanding wrestling merchandise for fans of every era, and unlike restaurants, movie theaters, etc., we're open 24/7. We never shut down. Without further ado, here's the man whose feet can never be cold. With the sock collection he has, no matter what the temperature may be, no matter what the time of the year, Socko himself, Larson's favorite, Matt Degnan. All right, Mr. Socko, it is going to be a busy week here at this fine studio. 3 big tapings, 2 live specials. Are we going to see you at all?
Probably not. I will be
Captain Dedication.
Watching the Rumble at my friend's house.
Well, if we could all be so lucky in the world. You're going to miss the John Cena scene you watch along for the Royal Rumble? I'm going to have to call Paul Romer about this, see what Paul has, or Pool, as you call him, has to say.
I don't think he'll have much. But...
Or maybe the Inzdranovitzes. If they weren't so preoccupied right now, I'd have to reach out to them.
I don't think they'd have much to say either.
I have a feeling they might have a lot to say. That's the problem.
Maybe about a free meal or two.
Well, or 3. All right, it was a big night in the Thunderdome down in Tampa, Florida. It was, but I passed the baton to you after I got my array of plugs in and news and notes for the fans at home as they get ready for a big Saturday night weekend review after our Raw show tonight at 10 o'clock when we have all 4 of this week's Studio Shoot Interview Wrestling Insider episodes in one-stop shopping. The first pilot test, it was a bit of a success. I don't know if you had a chance to watch it since you're so busy down there and can't even Facebook anymore, but you're not going to hurt my feelings too much. But 10 o'clock, we're going to have some fun, but not as much fun as we're going to have right now. Tell us what happened on SmackDown to open things up at 8 o'clock.
Well, SmackDown finally kicked off with something that wasn't Roman Reigns. I think they heard us talking last week.
They should have went back to Roman.
The show opened up with Daniel Bryan already in the ring. Bryan cut a promo on the Royal Rumble tomorrow night and how he is ready to win it. But he was interrupted by Raw's AJ Styles for some reason. Styles then challenged Bryan to a match for later in the night, and he accepted. I hate this quarterly brand-to-brand invitational, just a lazy and boring way to kill time and make things happen. And you could tell last night as we finished the show, if you didn't watch, you'll get the 411 of everything that happened. But I think there was more Raw superstars than SmackDown ones last night. I know they were trying to push the Royal Rumble as anything can happen, unpredictable. You have brands facing each other, and it's like I think they did more tonight to build up the brand versus brand stuff. And they did more for this than they did for Survivor Series. So I don't know. But what did you think of the opening to the show? I thought it was kind of lazy.
Absolutely terrible. The quarterly brand-to-brand invitational is code for we have absolutely no idea how to keep these shows fresh with the talent we have. It was if they went to IHOP a couple of hours before showtime and said, shit, we have SmackDown tonight. What should we do? And this was the show they came up with. It has no rhyme or reason why SmackDown officials would let Raw wrestlers on the show. What sense does that make? Again, you're trying to make sense out of a show built out of no common sense with a company that presents all of its shows with no common sense and a lot of nonsense. I was not impressed with the opening segment, even though you had 2 fine talents in the ring. 2 MWF alumni in AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan, if you will.
Yeah, to what you said, it almost just seems like the whole show last night was kind of just something they threw together. I mean, that opening segment seemed like they just put it together 5 minutes before the show started. The next match that we're going to get into, we've been seeing for a month straight. And even the match after that, and Corbin and Dominic, that happened last week. So it just seems like everything that happened last night was either already done or it was just kind of thrown together. And that was the feel. That was the feel for the whole night. As I just said, Bianca Belair defeated Bayley. Not a match that I particularly cared for. I thought it was going to be much better than what it was. It just seemed slow, unorganized, and again, as I said, thrown together. Didn't seem like they kind of prepared anything beforehand. And all the offense in the match just looked ugh. But what did you think of Belair getting the win? I mean, she reacted like she won the championship at WrestleMania in the main event, even though she just beat Bayley, in a filler match on SmackDown.
The match wasn't anything to write home about, but the right person won. They need to create some new female stars where they have so few. So I guess if nothing else, if you want to look for a positive in a sea of negativity last night, it was that the right woman won with Bianca getting the win over Bayley. But it built to nothing that I ever want to see again. I know that much.
Well, maybe Bianca will win on Sunday night. I know that's my pick.
She can whip people with her little hair extensions.
Baron Corbin defeated Dominic Mysterio. A rematch with the same outcome that didn't really need to be done. And
it was almost like a repeat from last week, a lot of it.
They, instead of putting it before the main event, they put it in the middle of the first hour. But it was a rematch with the same outcome, and I don't know why they needed to do it. A feud that really has nothing to it. After the match, Rey Mysterio attacked and took out Corbin to only further this feud even more. So I'm sure next week we're going to get Mysterio versus Corbin or some nonsense like that I'm sure no one's going to want to see. And I'm sure Dominic is going to throw Rey Mysterio out of the Rumble this Sunday. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. I think Dom and Rey are going to have a match at WrestleMania, but that's just me. But what did you think of Corbin and Little Dom?
It's better than the feud they had with Seth Rollins if we want to look for something positive in a sea of negativity. Corbin, I had high hopes for him when he came to WWE. He never quite got to that level due to a lot of bad creative issues and some of his own attitude problems. He blocked us on Twitter after our good friend John Cena Sr. shot on him a couple of years ago, but that's a different story for a different time. It's something different for Rey. You have the big man, little man dynamic. I continue to believe that you're going to overexpose Dominic Mysterio, and the fans are going to turn on him like they did Eugene, Zach Gowen, Otis, and the rest, but that remains to be seen. They did not call and ask for my opinion on what should be done with Dominic Mysterio in his full body outfit.
Tamina and Natalya will wrestle tonight on WWE Backstage. The winner will enter the Women's Royal Rumble at number 30. Stupid idea that makes no sense at all. Two women that nobody cares about. I know they're trying to get viewers for Backstage. I know they were going to try to put a match on it for this week. But this is just such a boring way to get viewers and just a waste of a match, to be honest. It takes the excitement out of the Rumble. Part of the show is the unpredictability and the surprise factor of it, but this match just totally ruins that. I don't know why. I guess if you do like Charlotte versus Sasha Banks, okay, that's obviously a lot better. But still, you're taking the unpredictability out of it. Number 30 is usually the one where they'll have someone somewhat of significance come out at 30, especially for the women's ones where they've always had a surprise at the end of it. But I mean, Natalya and Tamina, that's just the epitome of who cares.
They should save that for WWE offstage, but that's a different story for a different time as well.
Well, they could do it backstage and not televised.
There you go.
I mean, I don't know who's going to want to say, oh shit, Tamina and Natalya tonight on WWE Backstage for the 30th entrant in the Royal Rumble. Let me turn this on.
I don't know if it was a Fox idea. I don't know if it was a WWE idea, but they wonder why that show was canceled due to poor ratings.
I don't know what wrestling fan is going to look at this match and say, oh, let me turn on WWE Backstage. Even if it was Sasha Banks and Charlotte per se. I know Sasha's champion and Charlotte's got her own thing going on. But I'm just saying, two bigger names. I wouldn't want to know who's number 30. I would want to keep it as a surprise. Well, that's the whole thing about it.
I'll say this. Usually by the time number 30 rolls around, you have a general idea of who's the one person missing.
No, but I'm just saying in general.
Yeah.
I'd want.
I
I
like
don't
the
really.
year. God, I think you got to go back. I think it was 1996 when they did on the free for all. Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus Duke Drosy, and the winner got number 30, and the loser got number 1. I kind of like that. It was, the night of the show, building up the show itself during the pre-show, which was then a half hour live in the arena, and I thought that was a pretty good idea. I kind of like that.
Well, if you have two people that are in a feud and two people that, people care about, that's a different story. But when you have Tamina, who's wrestled about 2 matches in a year, Natalya, who hasn't won a solid match or done anything of significance in about 2 or 3 years.
No.
So if it was 2 wrestlers that people cared about and they were actually having a feud right now, that's a totally different story. And doing it the night of versus a backstage show the night before
That no one's going to watch anyway.
Yeah, that nobody's going to watch anyway. It puts a whole different story on it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a feud right now. Like, say Bianca Belair and Bayley. Say they had a match on Sunday. The loser gets 1 and the winner gets 30. That would be different because they've been feuding for a little bit. But the thing with that is they've wrestled each other almost every single week for a month. So, again, any way you look at this, it's just a negative. And that was kind of the whole thing of last night, too, on SmackDown, was you were scrapping to find positive things about that show last night. As we've been talking about now, is just what was the positives from last night other than the next segment we're going to get into. But the whole show just seemed like negative after negative after negative. But next up on SmackDown, we got an interview segment between Universal Champion Roman Reigns and the challenger tomorrow night, Kevin Owens. The 2 men were in different parts of the arena, and it was moderated by Michael Cole at the announce table, even though he pulled a Tony Schiavone. I think he asked 1 question, and that was it. I'm glad they didn't do another talking segment in the ring yet again.
Yes.
And they did this remote and apart from each other. A good segment with no comedy or shenanigans. It was a good way to build up their final match for tomorrow night at the Rumble. But I thought this was a good, effective segment that I was very, very glad when they announced it that they were going to have another final showdown before their match. And I was like, please don't just have Roman open the show. Don't have Owens come out. Don't have it be a big brawl, or don't have it close the show and have it be the same thing as last week. I'm glad it was apart from each other and it was done effectively.
It was a good segment. I continue to think that Owens is miscast as a babyface. He's much better as a heel. I don't care about his promos about his family, and that's no slight against in real life, his family. But I don't need his family incorporated into his professional wrestling scenarios. I don't care about it. I have no interest in them. He oversells it to the point where it's not interesting. Everybody in every angle, it seems like over the past year, has had some family dynamic into it. Keep the family bullshit out of it, because then once in a while when you do incorporate the family into an angle, it actually has some value to it. When you incorporate the family dynamic into almost every angle on the show, nobody cares, because it's the same thing in every feud and every storyline and every program.
Yeah.
But it was a good interview.
After all that.
And I think it'll be, as much as I'm not a big Kevin Owens guy, I think it'll be a good match. I just think Owens should be a heel.
AJ Styles, here we go. I strap in for this one, ladies and gentlemen, because this was complete nonsense. This is where the show up to this point already wasn't that great, and this is when it really fell off a cliff. AJ Styles versus Daniel Bryan ended in disqualification amongst the many. Good match that ended in tons of chicanery, and that was only the start of it. Match ended with nonsense of Sami Zayn, Big E, and Cesaro, just to take the shine away from the best thing that happened all night. This, of course, then turned into a 6-man tag team match after the commercial break, just like every other match in WWE seems to be made. Do you want me to run through everything that happened and then I can pass it to you, or do you want to take it chunk by chunk?
Why don't you go through the whole thing?
Okay.
I think it'd be easier for the fans to digest that way.
All right.
Maybe didn't see it.
All right. Intercontinental Champion Big E, Daniel Bryan, and Shinsuke Nakamura versus Cesaro, Sami Zayn, and AJ Styles. Ended in a disqualification again. Miz and Morrison ended the match after attacking everyone, but then Otis came out and attacked them. And then we come back from commercial break yet again and have a 9-man tag team match.
Not 10.
not 10, 9. But then it did turn into 10 once Sheamus randomly ran in and got the pin. But I guess the referee didn't really care to ask him if he was in the match or add him to it. Daniel Bryan, Shinsuke Nakamura, Big E, Sheamus, Otis defeated Sami Zayn, Miz, John Morrison, Cesaro, and AJ Styles. Just, again, as I said, Sheamus just ran down to the ring randomly. They never showed him previously throughout the night, and all of a sudden he shows up and he gets the pin after he wasn't in the match at all. This is just a complete waste of time, and it made a bad show even worse. I don't know what else to say other than I really didn't care, and it was just nonsense and a complete waste of everybody's time. I don't know how these wrestlers can look at this and go, holy shit, this is great. And then they wonder why nobody watches and nobody cares. I mean, everybody bashes the product right now, and you wonder why, and all you have to do is watch. And then to put the cherry on top, Braun Strowman then comes back after the match and takes everyone out. And I'll just say, what a waste of a return.
And he's on Raw too, right?
Yeah, something like that could have been done at the Rumble and meant a little bit more than running in the last 2 minutes of SmackDown, getting in a couple shots, and then getting the camera shot of him. I think it would have been much better having him come in Sunday night, maybe at number 30 or something like that, to come in the Rumble as a surprise.
Or at any number. It would have, well, I mean, it's hard to get a pop out of television sets that are going to be set up in the Thunderdome. But I think the fans would have liked it a lot better to have, someone they hadn't seen in a while come out during the Rumble, as opposed to, as you said, just coming out to end a boring, bland TV show.
Yeah, it's a waste of a return. Once I saw him, I go, that was a complete waste. He's on Raw. Everybody at that point must have already just turned off the show, because by the time this was done, it turned into a 10-man tag team match. And who cares who won? Everybody knew the faces were going to win. Whenever they have these multi-man matches, the majority of the time the faces are going to win, and I know they were trying to play up, the Rumble's this Sunday. We could see all this mayhem or Sunday night. They always love to do that before the Rumble, have everybody in this big tag team match from both sides. And, everybody goes over the top rope and, this is, if he did that on Sunday, he would be out of the match. And it's just, we know how the Rumble works. It's been going on for 30 some odd years. And I mean, it's not like we don't know how it works. We know if you get thrown over the top rope, you're out of the match. So it's just, again, they treat the fans like they're complete idiots and they don't know what's going on. If I didn't have to watch the show for our show, I would have just turned it off. It's not like the winner of the match, those 5 men get like the last 5 spots in the Rumble or something like that. There was no consequences to this match, and that's why it had nothing to it. And when you started out with Styles and Bryan, and then it ends up being this whole 12-man brawl 40 minutes later. Why would you care at all from 9:15 to 10 o'clock? What was there to care about in that 45 minutes? But what did you think of this whole schmaz?
The show, like you said, the last 45 minutes or so, it felt like it was booked by Vince Russo during the dying days of WCW, but that's almost an insult to Vince Russo. I hate the combining of the brands on free television because, again, it feels cheap, it feels lazy, it feels uncreative, it feels unnecessary. It feels like the thought process here was they almost took a camera into a kid's home that picked 10 random Mattel action figures and said, geez, let's make matches out of it for 45 minutes. That's how ridiculous this was. It did not make me want to see Royal Rumble. It only made me want to change the channel. I hate the dual brand interactions because it takes away from having the dual brands altogether. Having the guys just run out at random. I mean, is any SmackDown executive really going to allow Raw wrestlers to come in and do that to their SmackDown superstars? Now, I know Sonya Deville is lacking in the security department after what happened to her home back in August, but that's a different story for a different time. But this was just brutal. It was just bad television all around. Like I said, it felt like they were having lunch or breakfast at IHOP and said, oh, wait a minute, we have a TV show today. And then they got a couple of napkins, and this is what they jotted down for notes to present on TV. I can't think of anyone that would want to see more of this.
It's the best way to put it is just a waste of time.
Yes.
You got
It was a
nothing
complete
out of,
and utter waste of time. Nothing was accomplished on this show.
you got nothing out of it at all. I don't know what fan could look at this and go, "This is good wrestling." It's just when you have one match DQ turns into a tag team match, then that tag team match ends in DQ, and you start another one, and then that match ended with one who's not on the show in Sheamus. He wasn't even in the original match of the
Or
original
on the brand.
He wasn't on the brand. He wasn't in the original match of the original match of the original match.
But
So,
yet he came out in wrestling tights to end the show.
It makes no sense at all. And, usually that brand to brand quarterly invitational nonsense, that's usually like one person that comes over for one match. It's not, have everybody come over from Raw and have a brawl or wrestle in this big 10-man schmaz. But I mean,
it's just cheap, lazy, uncreative. And all they have to do is forget about Dan Mirade, the person that works in wrestling. Forget about Dan Mirade that does talk shows. Forget about Dan Mirade that's a WWE stockholder. Their greatest superstar legacy-wise in the history of the company went online and buried them for being soft in a much more PC way than we're saying it. But you know what? If The Undertaker thinks it sucks, maybe they should take a look at what they're presenting week in and week out and try and better the product. Granted, for the stockholders, it was a great week. They've come to terms on that deal to have WWE Network go over to NBC's Peacock, which I think is going to help the stock. But as far as at some point, it comes down to the quality of the product. And the quality of the product right now, at least with this show, was the absolute shits.
yeah, I don't know how you could be a writer backstage and say, "Oh, this is good," even if they think it's bad. I just don't know how. I don't know. I can only imagine the people sitting backstage. Can you imagine sitting in Gorilla last night and one after another just keeps running by to interrupt the match? And I can only just sit there and go, "Holy shit!" I mean, just one person after another, disqualification, restart it, and not even just restarting it. Every single match after that restarted after a commercial break just to add to the nonsense of it. But again, they got nothing out of it. The whole last 45 minutes of the show could have been put in the garbage. I mean, the whole show itself really did nothing except for that Owens and Reigns segment. But we move into our grades now of SmackDown, as I've been talking about. There was only about not even 10 minutes of the show that I liked. Everything else was just rematches or things we've seen from last week, not even just the past month, but Belair and Bayley, they did that whole thing last week in the obstacle course. Corbin and Mysterio, that was done last week. The opening segment of the show was not good, as we both said. So, I mean, the first hour was filled with stuff we've already seen or just boring stuff. So I gave SmackDown a 3 out of 10.
Unbelievable. There's something strange and cosmic going on, but yet again, we tie. I gave it 3 out of 10. Like I said, with the circumstances and the booking, it ruined the show for me. I hate lazy. I hate stupid. I hate the lack of logic. It makes me not want to watch. The guys and the girls, they went out and tried hard, so I'll always give them credit for that. But, I'm sure a lot of the production people tried hard. I'm sure there were some creative people that were frustrated, saying, why are we putting a show out like this that could be so much better? Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not in those creative meetings. I wish I was, because I feel like I could add a great deal of insight. And it may be a different point of view to try and enhance what was a very, very, very difficult show to sit through. And, you and I, usually, we really enjoy SmackDown.
Yeah, I was thinking about that throughout the whole show, and I was like, usually SmackDown is the best show of the week, usually, and then sometimes they do have that one little zinger in there every couple weeks, and boy, this was the one.
This was the zinger.
But I tell you, this was an awful go-home show. Nothing about it felt, oh shit, we got a pay-per-view this Sunday, especially, I consider the Rumble usually the second biggest show of the year.
Oh, without a doubt.
In my opinion, but I mean, it's your second biggest show of the year. I mean,
to those that argue SummerSlam, I'll say this: the reason why the Rumble is the second biggest event of the year is because it's an event that has consequence to it. At SummerSlam, you could have every great match in the world, and the next night you can start from scrap. With the Royal Rumble, there's always consequence that comes out of it, and that's why that show is so important each year.
And it's always exciting,
Well, most of the time. I know we had a good time last year in Houston.
But compare it to other pay-per-views. It has the most excitement.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little overdone now. We have the two of them. I don't think you need the two of them. I hate the fact that there's the two of them. They don't have enough women to fill the 30 women Rumble. I certainly wouldn't want to bash the fine female talent of WWE, but I hate the women's Royal Rumble. But you know what? It is what it is. We'll have to wait and see what happens tomorrow night under the Thunderdome in Tropicana in front of the first Royal Rumble in front of thousands of television sets. It certainly was not what I was expecting as we left Minute Maid Field last year in Houston.
Who would have thought? I tell you.
Who would have thunk it?
Who would have?
Your Sox mourned Kobe Bryant in the afternoon, and then you get to enjoy a hell of a Rumble, and then a year later, it's going to be held in front of TV sets, and you're blowing off John Cena Sr. I can't believe it. Unbelievable.
As long as the piece doesn't blow off.
Well, we can't have that happen. Can't have that happen. I will say this, though, for the fans that really thought SmackDown sucked, and I am one of them, in one of my interactions with WWE folk this week, they told me, while certainly not concrete, but the working idea for the top 3 matches for WrestleMania, and I'll say this, if they come to fruition, I think it makes for a very good WrestleMania. So maybe there is hope on the horizon. The problem I still see even with that is there's a long road to WrestleMania between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania where you have not one but 2 pay-per-views that fans really don't have that much interest in.
I don't think you'll reveal those 3 matches, I guess.
I will not do so right now just because I don't know if it would out the person that told me, I guess is the best way to put it, because I guess it's not widely known right now, where there's such little known about the show for 2 reasons. 1, they're trying to keep a couple of things under wrap. 2, they really don't have a heck of a lot of concrete ideas right now, but at least they do for what would be, I guess, the top 3. If they had anything for the women, I don't know, because they didn't tell me anything about women's matches, probably because they knew I didn't care. But it is, if they're going to get Ronda out there, that's the last day of her contract, but where she's enjoying life on her farm and trying to start a family, I don't think we'll see Ronda at WrestleMania this year, but watch me be wrong. Would she add any interest in it to me? No, but I'm sure to someone out there she would.
I don't know.
I'm sure Joan Jett's looking for a payday to come out and sing Bad Reputation again.
in front of half of a stadium.
Half of a football stadium. They can put her in the bleachers, socially distance her from Ronda. Ronda can point to her like she did the WrestleMania sign at the Royal Rumble a few years ago as Joan rocks out at Raymond James.
Or do like what they did in SpongeBob, where they had the bubble around them for the halftime show.
Yeah, believe it or not, I missed that. But Are there any news and notes that I missed? As I know, I have been accused of talking over you, interrupting you, preventing you from giving these news and notes, high-quality news and notes at that. Are there any?
The only note about that show is it was trash.
Yes. Well, it's really hard to hype up too much about what's going to happen the next week with such a big pay-per-view. So that's one thing we can't fault them for, is giving too many hints about what might happen next week on SmackDown. You have a 50-50 chance of having a winner from SmackDown that may reveal the selection of a WrestleMania main event, which may likely change with the 2 pay-per-views as far as all the opportunities for championships to change hands. As far as I know, the champions that are champions now will be the champions at WrestleMania. But as anything in WWE, that could always change. Look at what happened with Goldberg and The Fiend in Saudi Arabia.
I can't see that happening. I don't know.
You expect to see titles change. Now, which title do you think is going to change hands?
No, no.
Oh.
I'm saying that no title. I'm trying to think of any titles that could change hands.
Well, I'm not talking about every title. I'm talking about
Oh no, I know
the main
that.
two. Okay.
No, Roman's gonna hold it. I can't see him losing. Drew, even though I hate to say it, there's some small feeling in me that Goldberg might win tomorrow night, but I hope not. But I guess we'll find out.
If he didn't lose to Randy Orton last year, I think there might be a fighting chance. But why kill the guy twice via pinfall? It makes no sense. As I've said, I don't know how many times, every time the name Drew McIntyre comes up, the man should not have lost via pinfall until fans are allowed back into venues so WWE can gauge just how over or unover he is as someone that can be either A main event guy, or B, one of the faces of the company. They haven't had the chance to do that. It's not fair to Drew. It's not fair to WWE because potentially, who knows, the fans may really like him enough that he could be one of the faces of the company. You can't always go by social media reaction or look at what the ratings of AEW and NXT would be. Look at how socially active fans are on those nights. And the ratings in comparison to Raw and SmackDown, they're not even close. So you can't always go by that social media buzz. Sometimes you just need that organic reaction that only the live fans can bring, and hopefully they're going to get that April 10th and 11th at Raymond James in Tampa, but too little too late where we already lost the title once.
We'll find out tomorrow night who are the last men and women standing.
All right. Well, again, that comes to a conclusion. We'll be back on Tuesday night, 9 p.m. During a blizzard. A blizzard. We're talking mega snow here in Boston. Are you going to be getting it along the longest shoreline in Connecticut?
Yeah, I guess it's supposed to start early Monday morning and go into Tuesday. So,
well, I got a lot of production work to do the next 3 days, along with our live watch along tomorrow night at 7 p.m. The man with the Thunderdome that never stops glowing, John Cena Sr. And also, fans, don't forget, before the Royal Rumble at 5 p.m., we have part 2 of our acclaimed TJP studio shoot interview available. So it's a lot of wrestling talk, a lot of wrestling interaction on Sunday here in the world of Boston wrestling, along with our 4 big talk shows this week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights at 10. We have our TV review shows. We have our flashback videos. We have our daily history videos every morning at 10 p.m. on YouTube and on Twitter. We got a lot going on. I think, if memory serves me correct, I think for the month of January, we'll have had 76 videos produced. Can you believe that, kiddo?
It's like 2 a day.
Well, 2 plus if you do the math, but I wouldn't want to insult you like that.
Well, sometimes isn't there 3 a day when we do these shows? So
there's been a couple of days where tomorrow there'll be 4. There'll be the history video at 10, the flashback video at 2, TJP at 5, then the watch along at 7. We're going to need our own network soon. Maybe Peacock is interested in Boston wrestling sports so they can party with Marty. Do you have Peacock? I have Comcast, so I think in some way, shape, or form I do.
And I think the network subscribers transfer over, so I think everyone should be good.
Oh, thank God. I was getting worried there for a minute. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of confusion about that transfer, and I'm sure WWE is going to beat it to death between now and Fastlane on Sunday, March the 21st, which is the official WWE Network kickoff on Peacock. I don't know if the kickoff should come the day of a pay-per-view. I think that could lead to elements of a technological danger, but that's just one man's opinion.
I'm sure they'll do it like a test thing before.
Well, we got a lot of big pay-per-views between now and WrestleMania. Hopefully you're going to make your way up from Connecticut. Fridays is missing you. Now that Massachusetts is open later again into the evening, which is nice for us. That's a different story for a different time. And have you decided yet will you be making the trip down to the Sunshine State in April?
That's still, 2 months away, so I'll have to
Wow,
see on that one.
I'm really surprised by that. As soon as I got the official word, the plane ticket and the hotel was booked.
Because I still have 2 other trips. I got one to Vegas and another one to Florida like a week after that. So I got to see if I want to do another one.
Why do you, I don't understand the lure of Las Vegas in such a quiet time.
Because I'm turning 21, so I'd rather
But
be
what
there.
are you going to do?
I'd rather be there than sitting here.
I'll give you that. I'm very disappointed again that the Cauliflower Alley Club got castrated, but with the little light, they have decided once again to move it to September this year, a week before my birthday. So, knock on wood, enough people will have the vaccine that the Cauliflower Alley Club reunion can take place in Las Vegas in September. That would be a nice way for me to celebrate my birthday just a little early.
And it'll be football season, too.
It'll be football season, so maybe I'll be able to see the Raiders in action. I'd enjoy seeing their stadium. It's very close to where the Cauliflower takes place.
Even though they suck.
Well, it's the ambiance, kid. It's the ambiance. It's the experience. All right, any other news and notes before we go, sir, so I can edit this for 9 p.m.?
No, sir.
All right, wrestling fans, kick back, grab a beverage, grab a snack. At the top of the hour, 10 p.m., I will be joined by a plethora of superstars, all 4 studio shoots this week. Mr. USA, Tony Atlas, Matt Degnan's dear friend, Brian Knobs, Marty Jannetty with a movie-length episode, John Cena Sr. All 4 one-stop shopping. I'm going to pop in for the premiere. Maybe Matt, now that he was given his little blue wrench, could actually help on the social media end of things because we need him. He's part of the family. He's part of the team. He's been missing in action of late. We need you to sock up, baby.
I'm socked up right now.
Well, what color are they?
The black and white ones for the gym.
You're really not giving us a lot of variety when we ask. So with the pants, sometimes we get the salmon, which were Christmas colored apparently, but now every time we ask about the socks, it's white and black. But however,
because they're my athletic socks that I wear to the gym.
Usually, I'm mistaken.
My dress socks are usually the ones that are
a little more
crazy.
creative, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we'll leave it at that, folks. We'll see you at the top of the hour for Wrestling Insiders Week in Review. Don't forget, tomorrow night, 5 p.m., it's the TJP Studio Shoot interview. Then at 7 p.m., we go live with the man with the dome, John Cena Sr. It's the Royal Rumble 2021 watch-along party. We're going to have a good time. Sweet apple pie. Good night. The Royal Rumble is the second biggest event of 2021, and it's going to be even bigger. During our Wrestling Insider pay-per-view watch-along is the former Raw main eventer himself. John Cena Sr. will be in studio live during the big event. We'll watch the Royal Rumble, take some questions, sign some autographs, and make this year's Royal Rumble as interactive as it can be without you being there in person. Get ready for John Cena Sr. live during the Royal Rumble, January 31st.